everybody. What's happening? Marcus here, and thanks for tuning in wherever you're tuning in at, whether you're on Instagram Live or Facebook Live, or if you're on YouTube. Thank you very much. Or if you're on my blog, maybe. Thanks for catching this. I appreciate it. Thanks for the support. So let's talk about the one thing that most restaurant owners are afraid of. A lot of them are very afraid of this. I talk to a lot of the restaurant owners. I coach several restaurant owners. I've been in the restaurant industry for a long time, and I've been in mastermind groups and other programs, and just all in general, this is the most common fear of all. Most restaurant owners. So restaurant owners are afraid to raise their prices. They are afraid that raising their prices will cost them business. They're afraid that what their guests will say. They are afraid that they will lose business. They are afraid of raising the prices. But in reality, everything is getting raised on us constantly. Right? When I first opened my restaurant in 2003, minimum wage was $8.50 an hour, maybe $8, I don't know, something like that, something crazy. All right. So the cost of things, like I was looking at the cost of something today, and in the last 5 years alone, that one item has doubled in cost. And what's happened is the company has shrunk the pack size. And I was explaining to the driver, I was like, I used to buy this same thing, a double case. Now it's a half case, which makes it look like it's a full case. They've cut back this in size. I used to buy the same exact thing for $27. Now half of this is $27. And so, folks, we are being bombarded with price increases left and right, operational costs left and right. Everything from, if people just knew what we paid for dumpsters, to get dumpsters, a dumpster service, it is mind-boggling. Every single thing adds up. And most restaurant owners are afraid to actually increase their prices on their menu. So I'm here to tell these restaurant owners, you have to increase prices. That's common business sense. You can't keep taking a hit. It's okay to take a hit here and there on certain things, but overall, you can't take the hit over and over and over because you won't have a business left. And still to this day, people still tell me, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble with my guests. They're going to tell me they nickel and dime me if I raise something a buck. So you have to push that aside. You have to do what's good for your business. Now, do we all want to raise costs? No, we don't, but it's just what has to happen. So here's how my strategy is for raising the cost of something. Now, you just can't go in and raise the cost of everything across the board, because then your guests will be like, gee, yeah, what happened? Why'd they raise everything across the board? You have to be very strategic in the way that you actually raise your prices. So if you're a restaurateur listening to this, here's my strategy for raising prices. What you need to do, especially if you've never done this before, is run a report. Run a report for the last 1 month, 6 months, and full year of, let's say, your entrees. Section out your entrees, run a report on your POS, a sales report, and figure out a sales mix and figure out your top 3 selling entrees. All right, you're going to find out that in the last year, you've probably sold, or let's say a month. Let's break it down to a month. In the last month, you've probably sold, maybe 300 ribeye steaks, maybe 275 salmons, and the chicken you might be at 125, right? So you see how big of a gap that is from 300 to 125, 300, 275, 125. Your pasta dish might be 140. You're going to run numbers, and it's going to actually shock you of what the discrepancies are. You already know what your best-selling dish is because you order that thing the most. Your chef orders that the most. That's what the most thing you're paying for. So but when you actually start going through a sales mix and saying, oh my gosh, wow, these 2-3 things. So you take those top things, and if your salmon dish is $24, you pop it up $1. If your ribeye dish is $27, you pop it up $1. So the top 3 items in that category, you pop up $1. Then you go to your appetizers. You do the same thing. You run a sales mix report. You figure out what your best sellers are, and you just pop things up 50 cents, 75 cents, up $1. Now, the one thing that I can tell when I look at menus, if a restaurateur knows what they're doing on pricing, is you never make something end in 95. So nothing's ever $8.95, $12.95, $26.95. You always round up to 99. Imagine every single thing you ever order to add 4 extra cents on, okay? That adds up. That adds up drastically. That at the end of the year, for every single item you sold, if you ended in 95 but you went to 99, you're going to throw a couple more $1,000 into the bank, into the register. And I got to tell you, that is huge, because that's maybe 2-3 months of your waste removal, right? I know my waste removal is up to like $400 a month. It's outrageous. So anywhere you can get that leverage of getting an advantage, you want to. So now the other side of the coin of just raising prices on your most popular things is one strategy. Really the most in-depth strategy, which takes a lot of time to do if you haven't done this, is to cost every single dish out on your menu. Every single dish, and you use a program like Chef Tech. And from Chef Tech, you convert everything. So you know how much a drop of olive oil costs. You know that there's 285 drops of olive oil in a tablespoon, and that's what you know, 285 drops in 1 tablespoon. All right. So you break out every cost across the board, and you keep updating the price in Chef Tech or in whatever program you're using. Every invoice that comes in at the end of the month, the end of the week, you run reports, you check your recipes, you convert everything out to recipes, and you say, okay, our blueberry crisp costs us XY, and we're selling for ZY, and our food cost is XX, right? So every month you need to be monitoring that. And guess what? If the frozen blueberries you're buying, red blueberries you're buying, after 2 months it's just skyrocketed, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm at like nowhere near where I should be on food costs. Then that's not your best selling dish anymore, or it wasn't. Let's say it was never your best selling dish, your blueberry crisp. I have blueberry crisp on my menu, it's a great seller. But let's say it wasn't. You need to say, well, gee, I either got to get rid of this dish because I can't make the margin on it, or I need to raise the price so when I do sell it, I make the margin. And sometimes raising something $1 is not going to change how much you're going to sell. Sometimes dropping it a couple dollars will, or dropping $1. So on the other hand, you need to say, gee, I want to sell more chicken dishes, because my chicken dish, I pay for boneless thigh. I pay, $2, $2.25 for boneless thigh, $1.50 for whatever it is, $1.50 for boneless thigh, but I'm charging $17. That's a massive margin, right? So you might want to take that dish and drop it down to 16 or 15, so it sells like crazy, and you have a dish that's going to balance out your food costs. So everything's about balancing here. There's no specific answer to balancing your food costs with 1 dish or 2 dishes. It's an overall strategy. Now, if you've never cost anything out, like I said, the best strategy is go and get your best sellers and raise them $1. That's an easy thing to do, okay? But most restaurateurs are so afraid to raise prices. Guests understand. Guests are realistic. They understand. They're going to the grocery store, folks. Your guests that come into your restaurant go to the grocery store. They go to the gas tanks. They pay for heating oil. They pay for, electric. They pay all the same things that you do, and they understand that the prices are going up. So if a guest thinks that you're never going to raise your prices as long as you're open, that's just unrealistic. And if you're that restaurant owner, that business owner, that restaurant owner that thinks you can never raise your prices, you're being unrealistic. You're better off losing a small handful of customers and making more margin, and you'll make the same exact. I forgot what it was. It was a Harvard Business School analytic that I've referenced for years. Basically, if you drop like 10, 15% in your business, but if you had raised your prices, you're making better margins, you're at the same profit margin at the end of the day, even though you're doing less business because you've raised your prices on a couple of things. Now, how do you tell if your prices are really high? Because I get that comment from my restaurant here and there. Your prices are high, prices are high, prices are high. That comment I'll see come up on a review or on an email, on a comment card. If you're not getting if you're getting like 10 of those a month, your prices are probably high because you're not providing enough value on the plate. But if you're getting like 1 a month, 2 a month, you don't have anything to worry about. There's always going to be somebody who finds your menu prices too high. There's always going to be somebody. When it happens to me, I blame myself, because I said I didn't properly market to that person. They didn't come in. They didn't see what we're doing. They don't know we're farm to table. They don't know we're serving organic. They don't know. So I kind of blame myself. I take the responsibility onto myself instead of blaming the guests. So I just try harder to spread my message and create new content and create more content that shows you the value that my restaurant is truly offering compared to what other restaurants or other food products are out there. So you have to be in charge of that and create that value. But if you're not getting 10 of these a month, don't worry about it. If you're getting a couple a month, I mean, if you're getting 10 a month, then yeah, maybe. But if you're getting a couple a month, just don't worry about that whatsoever. I mean, this is folks, this is common economics. Prices, your cost of goods get raised. You need to raise your prices on your menus. So chefs, restaurateurs, do not be afraid of that, but do it strategically, do it one by one, do it, and here's the thing, like you can bring in different products and keep the same price at, if your steak price is $25 and if you want to stay at, try a different cut of meat, try something else. If you want to go from a cowboy steak to a porterhouse steak and it's the same price, you can probably put the porterhouse on for more than the cowboy steak because you can justify it's 2 cuts of meat, even though it's the same price per ounce that you're paying, same price per pound, and it's the same ounce size you're serving. You might be able to get a few more bucks because it's a different cut. So there's other things you can do to play with your costs of your price, your menu price, besides just raise every price across the board. But restaurateurs, do not be afraid to raise your prices. It's the name of the game. It's what you have to do. So you have to do to stay profitable. You don't want to be there, without taking a paycheck for yourself, without a business, because it's going to come down to one day, if you don't raise your prices, you will not have enough money to continue on. You'll not run a financially sustainable business. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. However you saw this, whether it was Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, or my blog, I really appreciate that. Thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you later.